The automatic purging of completed purchase orders during period-end processing is a standard feature in Sage Mass 90 and Mass 200 ERP. In order for purchase orders to be auto-purged, two conditions must be met. The PO must be complete, meaning the ordered quantity for each line must match the received and invoiced quantities, and if any of the quantities do not match, the PO will remain in a backorder status. And secondly, the PO must fall outside the history retention date range set up in PO options. Regarding the first condition that must be met, there are many scenarios that will cause the quantities to not match. Accordingly, POs in backorder status need to be evaluated individually. In this tutorial, we'll cover 3 scenarios of POs that should be complete but remain in backorder status because they were not processed properly. We'll walk through how to process each one, then we'll purge the completed POs. So here are the 3 scenarios. In the first, goods are partially received and the remaining quantity will not be fulfilled. In the second, we need to fulfill remaining goods on a partially received PO. And in the third, goods are under-invoiced and the invoice for remaining goods was entered directly through accounts payable and not through purchase orders. So let's jump right in and get started. And the first step will be to identify POs with outstanding quantities, which we'll do by running the Open Purchase Order Report. To run the report, we'll go to the menu tree and select Modules, Purchase Order, Reports, Open Purchase Order Report. There are various options for configuring the report contents, but for this tutorial, we only want to evaluate POs in backorder status. So under Purchase Order Statuses to Print, we'll uncheck New, Change, Open, and Completed. Now let's preview the report. As you can see, this report shows the ordered, received, backordered, and invoiced quantities. For our first scenario, we'll look at PO 10016. Looking at the details here, we can see that the received and invoiced quantities of 2 match, but are less than the ordered quantity, which is 3. For this example, we'll assume that the remaining goods on the PO will not be fulfilled, so it would now be appropriate for us to complete the PO. To do this, we'll close the report and go to the menu tree and under Purchase Order, select Main, Purchase Order Entry. Here we'll click the lookup and select PO number 10016. Notice that the order status is backorder. Now let's click the Lines tab. Here we'll change the ordered quantity to 2 so that it matches the received and currently invoiced quantity. And now we'll click Accept. Let's reopen the purchase order to confirm the status has changed. Here we'll open the lookup and select PO 10016. This time we get a message that the PO has been completed, and we'll click No to Continuing, and that completes our processing of this PO. Now let's move on to our second scenario, and to start, let's go back to the Open Purchase Order Report. For this example, we'll take a look at PO 10017. Here you can see that similar to the previous scenario, the ordered quantity is greater than the received and invoiced quantities. For this example, let's assume that we have physically received the remaining item and the vendor's invoice, but we failed to process the transaction in the system. So to complete this PO, we're going to receive the remaining item along with the invoice. To do this, we'll go to our menu tree and select Receipt of Goods Entry. To start, we'll click the Next Number button to begin a new receipt, and we'll accept the date and use the lookup to select PO number 10017. For this example, we'll enter invoice number 1234567. This will receive the invoice at the same time we receive the goods. Alternatively, the receipt of invoice could be processed separately through Receipt of Invoice Entry. Moving on, we'll accept the date and click the Lines tab. And we'll choose Yes to receive the complete purchase order. Notice that the remaining quantity on the PO has been received. Now we'll open the Totals tab to verify the amount against the vendor's invoice, and in this case, we'll assume they match, so we'll click Accept. Let's click the printer icon to start the journal and register process. We'll accept the posting date, and for demonstration purposes, we'll preview the receipt of goods register. Let's close the register, and the daily purchase journal opens for our review. We'll close the window and review the daily purchases tax journal summary that follows. And closing this window opens the prompt to update the daily receipt registers, and we'll click Yes to update them. And to printing the daily transaction register, we'll click No, as this can be completed at another time. And that completes the processing of our PO under this scenario. Moving to our third scenario, let's once again look at the open purchase order report, and for this example, we'll use PO number 10018. Notice that the invoice quantity on this PO is less than the ordered and received quantities. For this example, we'll make the assumption that the invoice for the remaining item was entered directly through accounts payable and not through purchase orders. To complete the PO, we'll need to enter the remaining invoiced quantity through receipt of invoice. So we'll go to our menu tree and select Purchase Order, Main, Receipt of Invoice Entry. We'll start a new receipt by clicking the Next Number button and using the lookup, select PO number 10018. For invoice number, we'll enter 234567. Let's accept the date and open the Lines tab, and we'll click Yes to invoice the complete PO. This places the remaining quantity in the invoiced column so that the PO will be complete. Since the invoice amount was posted through AP, we don't want to duplicate the amount to the vendor, so we'll change the unit cost to 0, which in turn makes the extended cost 0. Now we'll click over to the Totals tab to verify that the total is 0, which it is, so now we'll click Accept to save the receipt. Now we'll print the register, and for demonstration purposes, we'll preview the receipt of invoice register. And after a quick review, we'll close it. And the Daily Purchases Journal opens for review. And closing the journal launches the Daily Purchases Tax Journal Summary, which we'll review and close. And the Receipt/Invoice Variance Register follows. The variance register is generated because we zeroed out the cost of the item. The register displays the variance between the cost of what was received into inventory versus what was invoiced. We'll close this window and acknowledge the warning that a variance was encountered. And we'll click Yes to update the daily receipt registers. And finally here, we'll elect not to print the daily transaction register. Now that we've completed our 3 backordered purchase orders, we'll go ahead and purge them. To do this, we'll return to the menu tree, scroll down, and select Utilities, Purge Completed Purchase Orders. Here we'll enter 1/31/2011, and the system will remove POs completed on or before 5 days prior to this date. 5 days is the number of days we set in purchase order options to retain completed purchase orders. And now let's click Proceed. We're asked to confirm this action, and we'll click Yes. To verify that our 3 example purchase orders have been purged from the system, let's rerun the Open Purchase Order Report. So we'll go to the menu tree and select Open Purchase Order Report, and again, we'll deselect New, Change, Open, and Completed, and hit Preview. Notice that purchase orders 10016, 10017, and 10018 are no longer listed, which confirms that they've been successfully purged. And that completes our tutorial. So to recap, cleanup of backordered POs allows for accurate reporting and efficient reconciliations. Accordingly, for any PO with a backorder status that is found to actually be complete, the applicable transaction should be processed to bring the PO to a completed status. Give us a call if you need assistance with this or any other feature in your Sage Mass 90 or Mass 200 system. Well, that's it for this tutorial. Bye for now.